Joining us on the program, he is an actor who you may know from anywhere from 0 to 5 car and insurance commercials currently in your television and Hulu rotations. A man you can catch right now on the Vince Vaughn Apple TV Plus series Bad Monkey. And folks who know us and are down with Paper Street Pictures might just know him best as the star of the Scare Package films, where he portrays the horror-loving, lovable loser Rad Chad Buckley. And he has continued this character with a brand new web series in which Mr. Chad Buckley follows in the footsteps of his creature feature idols and hosts his very own horror show known as Rad Chad's Rad Recommendations. He is Mr. Jeremy King. Jeremy, thank you for joining me and Becky on the program.
I am so excited to be here, Sean and Becky. There's no place I'd rather be.
Ah, that just warms our hearts.
Doesn't it?
It does. So the way we typically start this off is just by asking you to go all the way back to the beginning. What gave you the bug? What got you interested in film, in art, in storytelling? Was there a person, a movie, an experience that got you hooked?
Oh, man. I think if we're going all the way back, I don't know. I always loved movies. I always loved trying to make people laugh. And it was so funny because I remember very specifically, like we used to have family dinners almost every night. And I have two older brothers and they were really funny. And I would always try to be funny. So I would tell jokes at the dinner table. And I remember very specifically, I think I was in like first grade. And my mom turned to me one time after I'd said a joke and nobody really laughed. And she goes, "Don't worry, Jeremy, you'll be funny one day." So, and then in fourth grade, there was a Hernando de Soto play. And I wasn't going to try out because this one kid that like always did all the plays was supposed to be the lead. But I went after school for some reason. I wanted to watch like the audition process. And I remember he didn't do very well. Like the kid everybody thought was going to play the main part. And the teacher's like, "Well, is there anyone else that wants to try?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'll try," and I ended up booking the lead role of Hernando de Soto. And we got to miss class every day. I think like the rest of the class was like sitting in the cafeteria while we got to like rehearse our play. And I really loved it just from then on. But I never really took it super seriously, like through high school and stuff. I did some skits, I did some fun stuff, but I was never like really in theater. And then in college, I took some theater classes when I was playing football up in Virginia. And then I followed that up when I went to USF and took, more theater and studied Stanislavski and all that good stuff. And when I got out of school, by the time I got out of school, I had already been running my valet parking company for a year. So we took over the valet company we were working for like my junior year of college. So I was working like 60 or 70 hours a week for like a few years. And I remember like after a few years of that, I was like, is this really what I want to do the rest of my life? Or do I want to pursue something that I actually like enjoy and love? And I'd done some radio, I'd done some stand-up comedy. And then I got hooked up with just randomly, somebody I knew had a friend who got their headshots done from a lady named Beverly Brocious in Orlando. I went to her to get my headshots done, and I knew nothing about film or TV or commercials or anything. And she's like, "I love you so much. Like, I want you to meet my agent." And she took me to meet this lady, Greta Hanley, that used to run Bicoastal Talent. And she assigned me on the spot. And she's like, "I want you to start taking classes, start doing independent films." And so like I followed all her instructions and kind of went from there. Boy, that was a long answer.
I didn't know any of that. Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So it was wacky the way it happened because, normally an agent won't sign you unless you already have experience, unless you've already done stuff. And she kind of gave me the roadmap. And I went to a school called Artsake in Orlando. And there was a teacher there, Yvonne Suhor, who actually used to be on the show Young Guns back in the day. And she was just amazing. And she could see right through people. I remember the first time I met her, I was just dropping off my check for class. And we were talking and she asked me something. And I was like, "Oh, she goes, "How are you feeling right now?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm okay." She goes, "You're wearing a smile mask." And I go, "Huh?" She goes, "You're nervous. It's okay." She goes, "But you have a smile mask." And I mean, that smile mask took me years to take off. I mean, it's interesting the things that we do, sort of in our day-to-day lives that we don't even realize,
Yeah, that is an interesting way to put it, but I know exactly what she means when
right. It's sort of just like the social thing that everyone does. If you're nervous, I tend to smile even if I'm nervous, thinking that will cover it up. And she just it's funny because you hear so much that people go, well, actors are liars. They're just good liars. And it's actually the opposite. Actors have to take somebody else's words, make them their own, make it their own life, and be truthful with it. When somebody's lying as an actor, that's when you see that they're acting. That's like bad acting. Good acting is being truthful and honest in the moment with your own emotions, with your own. So, I mean, it takes a lot to kind of open that up because I think naturally in society, we're so shut down emotionally, you know? So it took years to kind of peel that away. And it was a process.
I like that answer, and I like the spin on. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say the counterpoint to that they're actually bad at it, and that when you see through the acting, that's when they're showing that they're not great at it.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, you hear it all the time, you know, like,
Yeah.
well,
Oh
actors
no,
are
it's such a
liars.
it's a kind of
No,
throwaway
like
line at this
actors are
point.
actually bringing you the truth because if they're lying, you can tell they're lying and you're not going to believe them. It's going to take you out of the moment. Like it's when actors are truthful and in the moment that magic happens, you know?
Yeah. Well, going back to a couple points, because I always wondered this about you. I know some things about you, obviously, just from collaborating with you with some Paper Street stuff, but you did mention stand-up. I wanted to ask, like, did you ever think about you being the funny guy, but you had brothers who were funny? Was there ever an avenue where you thought sketch or stand-up was going to be the answer, not just theater and dramatic acting?
Well, you know what's really weird is when I was up in Virginia, I part of my football scholarship was I had to like work on campus, and I ended up working for a thing called Panther Productions, which we brought in all the bands, comedians. We set up all the shows for anything coming into the school. So I would usually go to the airport and meet a lot of the comedians that came in, and they were on the college circuit, so they were probably making $500 a night, driving their own cars a lot of times, you know, from gig to gig. And the really weird thing is, like, I love doing stand up. I love making people laugh, but I saw the lifestyle early on and like what you had to go through in that process. And I was like, man, I go, that's miserable. You know, like
It's a circus, the road gig, whether you're a pro wrestler or a freaking stand-up, like the road wears everybody down. And
oh yeah. I mean, you know, I mean, I wish I would have given it a try, more of a try, because I enjoy it. And maybe that just gave me like a bad taste in my mouth to where I went, no, that's not the avenue I want to take. It was sort of like with radio. I entered a contest and then the final contestants got to like be on a morning show. It was Wild 98.7 here in Tampa.
I remember that channel.
And yeah, and so from that, like I won my own radio show. So I had my own show on Saturdays from like, I don't know what it was. It was 3 to 6 or something like that.
What'd you do
And
on the show? What was it about?
I mean, it wasn't anything crazy. I think my name was DJ Jizzo. My one buddy
Naturally.
used to call me Jizzo back in high school. You know, you'd kind of talk in between the breaks and do different stuff, take phone calls and stuff like that. But it was very lonely. Like radio is another one of those things that sounds really cool, but then you actually go and do it and you're like, oh, this is kind of like, I don't want to call it boring. I mean, I guess it'd be cool if you're on like one of those morning shows with like 5 different people, but in general, like radio people are in the booth by themselves, pushing all the buttons and taking phone calls and, you know, doing your quick, you know, intros and outros to songs and to commercials and stuff. So it's something cool to experience, but it was another one of those things where I'm like, I don't really, I couldn't really see myself doing this long term, you know?
No, I get that because it's different when you feed off a crowd as a stand-up. The crowd's part of your thing, whether you want it to be or not. And when you have to be on in a dark room by yourself, it's like doing it in front of the mirror. Like that wears off
Right.
pretty
And,
quickly.
you know, I used to write, I would write a lot of stuff, you know, during the week to use. And that was interesting. But I wish I would have given stand up more of a chance. I think when I was doing it, I was sort of like, I really enjoyed it, but I also knew I didn't think I had or I wanted to do the whole rising up the ladder thing, you know?
No, yeah, it's a grind, like we talked about.
And that's the great thing about like film and TV is like it's sort of the best of both worlds. Like I love doing comedies, and I think I was thinking about this today on the way over. One of my favorite things about doing comedies is like making the crew laugh, or like when we were doing Camera Obscura, and God, I'm forgetting his name right now. Chris Denham. Very serious actor, very method, super nice guy. But like when he was in a scene, like his character was very serious. And my only goal for the day is like, I will break him. I will make him laugh during a take and ruin a take. And I did. And that was great.
Meanwhile,
Actually, the best part of that was he actually called me about a month after filming. And he's like, man, he goes, I thought you were amazing, dude. He goes, I'd like to introduce you to my agent in New York. And I'm like, oh my God, what a great opportunity. I mean, it was amazing that he even thought of me, like he could have done the project and moved on to all the other things he was doing, but he actually took his time out and I submitted to them. And, he called me back. He's like, well, they're not accepting anybody right now. He goes, I think they're making a big mistake, but I was like, man, that was nice that you put yourself out there and, thought of me like that, that meant a lot.
Yes, not to side tangent, but Christopher Denham, who you can see in the Showtime show Billions, he's got parts in things like Charlie Wilson's War, Argo, Shutter Island. I would tell you 6 or 7 crew members have a story like you just told. Like, he is that good of a guy.
Oh,
he went out of his way above and beyond
guy
for so many things. So yes, if you can ever have a chance to work with Christopher Denham, he's done a lot of Broadway as well. He's a wonderful human being by all accounts.
I believe he did a show with.
He had come off one with Al Pacino when he arrived.
Yes, it was just him and Al Pacino. And I'm like, wow.
So speaking of serious actors and comedic actors, what is your favorite type of role to play? You said you love to make people laugh, but like, is it because you're a goofball you want to prove yourself dramatically, or is it reverse? What do you prefer? What would you like?
I don't see I don't see myself. I love doing both. Like I love doing action, and I love doing, I've trained in stunt driving, and I love doing stunt driving, and I love doing fight scenes. I love dramatic film because I love touching people, not in a weird way.
Come on, Sean.
Or maybe in a weird way.
Oh, he set himself up for that. Come on.
No, but I mean, that's a great thing about, acting isn't curing cancer, and it's not, but if you can take somebody out of their problems for 2 hours, or if you can touch somebody and make them feel emotions that they don't normally feel, whether it be laughing or crying or even, a slight chuckle. I mean, reaching somebody is kind of the ultimate thing, right? I mean, it's that's probably my favorite part of acting.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people are driven to storytelling and creating art, right? It's being able to create a connection, manifest that. And I think as an actor, you get to create a really interesting connection, even if it might feel kind of one way at times, because you're like the face of that movie, that script, if you will. So, people kind of form this connection.
You guys smell that? You smell that? It's a segue.
Well, I was going to talk about a character that you've played that has become quite beloved and that a lot of people connected with, which is, of course, Rad Chad Buckley.
Yes.
So those unfamiliar, this character has a video store that sort of frames the narrative around Paper Street's anthology Scare Package. So I want to know a bit more about how this character came to be. How did you end up collaborating with Aaron Kuntz and Cameron Burns, who wrote the script? But I imagine you also got to infuse a lot of your personality and input as well. Can you talk a little bit about that collaboration?
Well, that's a great thing about Aaron and Cameron and Paper Street Pictures in general. I'll include Sean in that, I guess, and even Alex with editing. They kind of let you play. Like, so a lot of times they'll just let us improv scenes. Like a lot of the stuff that made it into, especially the first Scare Package when it was, less people in each scene. I think when there's 10 or 11 people in a scene, like there was in Scare Package 2, it's a little harder to improv because then it kind of throws everybody off. But, there was whole scenes that were improv. one of my favorite lines in the whole thing is the Goldie Hawn line.
Oh, yes.
That Byron
Brown.
With. So, I think Byron Brown is one of the most underappreciated, funniest people I've ever met, first of all.
He plays Sam in both Scare Package 1 and 2 for those.
Right. So he plays Sam. And, oh, my God, he's just, I think I ruined that take from laughing behind the camera when he came up with that. So, that's the great thing about Aaron and Cameron is that they let you play, they let people improv, they let you add flavor to your own characters. But the crazy thing about that is how that came about was I actually worked with Aaron and Cameron on a short film called D-Grade. And I think it was the second film I had ever done. And it was in like 2003, I want to say. And I played a bicycle cop. And I was screwing around so much in between like scenes or during setups. And there was like a guy there like filming all of it that they actually made like a second little short just about my character. And then when they were creating Paper Street Pictures, I think like 8 or 9 years later, Cameron wrote me on Facebook And he's like, hey, we're creating this film company and we're doing this short film, and we'd love you to be in it. And I wrote him back like this page long thing, like, look, I'm a serious actor and I'm a serious SAG actor now and I can't do stuff for free. And, this is ridiculous. And then at the end of it, I go, I'm just kidding. Of course, I'll come out and play with you guys. So that was actually El Chupug Cabra.
VL Chupug Cabra.
Chupug Cabra, and I played El Padre.
Right.
And I think I showed up on set in a pink polo shirt with a bolo tie, a bolo with a polo. And Aaron's like, that's ridiculous, but go for it. And I think Rad Chad was sort of based on El Padre, like sort of what we were doing with El Padre. And yeah, it just kind of grew from there.
Oh, that's interesting. Fun to hear about the little kernels that, developed into the character. Speaking of other scare package experiences, what was it like working with Joe Bob Briggs? Were you a fan of his previously? And if you were, did that kind of impact, your experience acting alongside?
I was. I was a fan of his beforehand, but I definitely studied up on him more and gained even more respect for him as we were getting ready to film, just because he's just a brilliant guy. I mean, he's so smart. And I don't really get shy around like other actors or people that are supposed to be big names, because at the end of the day, I feel like we're all there for the same reason. But it's always very refreshing when people are like super cool and down to earth. And Joe Bob was definitely that. He was awesome and had so many stories to tell, like in between when we were filming about different stuff.
Yeah, he's not short on those. He was anecdotes for days.
Right.
So Rad Chad Buckley became a memorable character that he not only miraculously returns from the grave for the sequel. Spoilers, guys. You should know that because Scare Package 2 is in fact subtitled with the character's name, Rad Chad, Rad Chad's Revenge. Since you had already established the character in the first film, did you kind of feel like you had to meet a certain expectation, or did you feel like you had some freedom to expand a bit? I know it's a very different story, which is still possibly not over, but how did you kind of approach it with the follow-up?
We had we had so many. I see Rad Chad as like such a good guy with such a kind heart that we definitely had a lot of. They took it in a direction that I really wasn't expecting. So when I got the script, I called them and I'm like, I just kept on asking them all these questions, like, guys, what's going on here? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? So yeah, I think most of the film I was playing Rad Chad's cousin from across the pond,
Bo Buckley.
Yes, and so that was interesting because he didn't really talk a lot, so I was just kind of in the background a lot. But I got to really enjoy watching all the scenes and watching all the stuff with the other actors, and then doing my terrible Cockney accent when it did come out. But one of my favorite parts in filming that was when I went back. Like, I think one of the last scenes we filmed was the funeral scene, when it's revealed that I'm not really dead. And I mean, that was probably my favorite part of filming, just because, again, by the time we were getting done filming, like none of us could even look at each other because we were all taking turns just busting up laughing. And, it was just such a good time. I didn't really come in with any pressure of like, oh man, people are expecting something from me. Like, when I'm playing characters like that, I just go in and have fun. I mean, I don't put too much pressure on myself about stuff like that.
Yeah. So speaking of internet, we kind of Last Jedi'd the sequel a bit, and Mark Hamill called us and said, "Is this really the way you want to go with Luke?" And those who know it's all good. A lot of people didn't. Jeremy was one of them too. He was a little skeptical of the direction, but again, we have a plan, a redemption possibly, but we'll talk about that down the road. But yeah, it'll work itself out.
So many phone calls and so many. Yeah, I mean, just going like, guys, I'm having trouble with this because he's not being very nice right now.
Yeah, you went from like lawful good or maybe neutral good to like sort of a chaotic evil, possibly.
Yes.
Really, you moved down the grid a bit. But yeah, since the release of Part 2, we have launched a web series, an in the Scare Package universe web series. As we said, you're kind of following in the footsteps of possibly your papa, but some of your horror creature feature idols, where you host your own in a similar vein called Rad Chad's Rad Recommendations. Let's jump into that.
So yeah, he's running the show from his basement, and he's sharing wonderful shorts every week with his huge fan base,
There's
which includes his
definitely,
mom and two other people.
well, you mentioned like the hosting element, and there's definitely, we talked about Joe Bob earlier, and I can definitely see some of the influence as a horror host. I'm
Right.
curious, did you study any other hosts for inspiration, either some of the classics or more modern ones?
No, not really. I think we just kind of all sat together and thought about what, from a character standpoint, what it would look like if Rad Chad was hosting a show, right? And I think it's very heavy on horror knowledge, which is definitely a throwback to Joe Bob. I think he likes to kind of show off his horror knowledge and get real deep into the history of different things. So I think Joe Bob would definitely be the main person he would be trying to take after, because that is his papa.
Here, I thought you were mixing Gilbert Godfrey from Up All Night with Rachel Quaintance from Dinner and a Movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
just doing your own thing, apparently.
Yes, that's how I roll.
There's notes of all of it. I also love how it's highlighting a lot of films, short films that people maybe would not come across. You get a lot of hosts with like feature films, but it's great to see these shorts as well from a lot of really talented filmmakers and introducing them to people as well, fused with the context and the showing off some of the horror knowledge, the deep cuts, if you will, with some of the commentary. So I think it's
Right.
kind of a unique blend that way.
Yeah, I love being able to share a lot of these shorts. I mean, we've had a lot of the former people from some of the Scare Package movies, like Chris McEnroy and Anthony Cousins and stuff like that. And the Andahar sisters are going to be on the Christmas special.
On Duhar Sisters, that episode
And
is
Duhar,
out now as Jeremy's talking.
yes, yes. And they all make such great work. I mean, I was able to do a short with Chris McEnroy a little while back, and man, I just love his stuff. And Anthony Cousins is just freaking hilarious. So it's fun to kind of circle back and be able to work with these people in different ways.
Yeah, it was funny. Both Chris and Anthony, I saw them both this year at the Telluride Horror Show, and they both had shorts playing. So it was fun to see them on stage next to each other. And of course, Chris, he's so prolific. We see him every year with something. And I always look forward to a good laugh with whatever he's going to do.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. Speaking of kind of like stamina, I guess, with a web series, it can be kind of challenging, right? Just like the volume of content. And I imagine keeping the Rad Chad energy and keeping like the jokes fresh and everything can be a bit of a challenge. Like, how do you approach that in terms of an actor and a comedian?
I love it. It's my happy place. Like when it's so funny because when we have our meetings each week, like that's kind of like a small highlight of my week to get to play. I think so many times, like I love acting. I don't always love the business of acting. Like this week, I probably had, I don't know, 18 or 20 like commercial auditions, one film audition. And it was, it gets kind of grating at times, because you're doing all these things that, maybe you don't necessarily connect with as much. So I think doing this is sort of refreshing for me. And it's sort of fun to get together with these guys and just kind of throw jokes around and play in that fun place,
Yeah, it is like a little baby version of what we imagine a fun writer's room would be like. It's not SNL or it's not like major prestige television, but it is a fun little weekly thing where we yes and each other and come up with usually best joke wins kind of thing. So
Exactly.
the show in question, as we're talking about, not that, Jeremy knows radio. He knows how to post and reset and hit those timestamps and all that stuff. But Paper Street has a YouTube channel. If you find, just search Paper Street Pictures on YouTube, you will find Rad Chad's Rad Recommendations. There is the season out now. It's 5 episodes. It just ended up with a little Christmas special that we recorded ahead of Christmas season here. So yes, check those out on YouTube. I will link it in the show notes. But if you're just looking for it, yeah, Paper Street Pictures has a little sub playlist channel on the Paper Street official YouTube.
We're going to get that one out just in time.
Nice. Happy holidays for everyone then. So switching gears away from Rad Chad, do you have any other really memorable characters that you've had the opportunity to play, or is there a favorite acting experience maybe that you'd like to share?
One of the smallest roles I've ever done that ended up being like, I don't know, mere seconds on camera was Pirates of the Caribbean 3. I played one of Beckett's like main guards that protected the dead man's chest. And for the little amount of screen time, I ended up much of it on the cutting room floor. I mean, that was probably one of my favorite experiences just because of I mean, the whole experience. Like we spent, man, it was 6 or 8 weeks out in the Bahamas, and then I spent another probably a total of like 6 weeks in California between like Culver City, shooting the main like battle scene where all three boats are going into the big whirlpool. But the coolest part was out in the Bahamas when we were off, there was really nothing to do. There was one square where everybody would hang out. And so I got to meet so many amazing people. Like Gore Verbinski was out there. Dave Vengus, who was the first AD, I got to make really good friends with him. Angus and Giles, the guy like the skinny guard and the big guard that were kind of big in the first one. Those guys were like the nicest people I've ever met in my life. Like on their day off, one of our friends was visiting, who was like a big film buff, and they literally on their day off took them around set and showed them around. And so everybody out there was so cool. We got to go to the wrap party for 2 because we filmed some stuff for Pirates 2 while we were there, but we were just getting into Pirates 3. So we got to go to the wrap party, which was super awesome. I think I was pretty drunk by the time I talked to Keira Knightley. So unfortunately, that didn't work out the way it could have, I guess. But
oh, darn.
Yeah. And I got my scuba diving certificate while we were out there. I learned how to fire muskets and cannons. And so it was an amazing, like, as far as an experience is concerned, I mean, that was probably the biggest set I've been on. And like the meals were amazing. Like Fridays, we'd have lobster and steak. And I mean, just huge buffets for every meal. I mean, it was awesome.
Yeah. They don't get much bigger than that's, I think 2 and 3 end up being some of the top 10 most expensive movies ever made. So I'm sure
they actually shut him down. They shut filming down for like a few days because he was so far over budget. And then the second one came out and it made like $1 billion. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll give you free reign to do what you want here.
Yeah, it's worked out for Disney. That franchise is, even the lesser recent 2 that kind of broke out of the continuity a bit, still made plenty of money for him.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think there was a crew of like 700 people out there. So it was crazy.
Insane.
Yeah.
So you, a working actor, still auditioning, still doing the Zoom auditions, I guess, nowadays in the post-COVID world. One of the major struggles working in an industry that requires inconsistent hours and travel sometimes and balancing home and family life, as you were also a family man with an entertainment career. How do you juggle this? Are you juggling this? Are all the plates falling? What's happening? How are you doing with it? No, I'm kidding. Now, how are you juggling the balance?
I was actually just thinking about this the other day. I feel like I have a pretty good work-life balance in general, but I don't think it's ever 50-50, like it's usually like 70-30 one way or the other. I'm either usually slammed with work and, I feel like the family stuff needs more attention or I'm, slow with work to where I can really enjoy my family time. But then you start going like, oh, I need to also bring in more money. So I think that's the tough thing about life, man. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we just bought a farm last year. So we bought a 40-acre farm and my to-do list gets longer every day.
Wow. Congratulations. Do you
Thank you.
A bunch of animals on the farm or crops?
Yeah. So we have mini cows. So we have mini Highlands, which are like these big fluffy cows that are very much like dogs. They grow to be about 40 inches tall and they're super docile and like super nice. We have a couple horses. We have a bunch of goats. We just got ducks. We're going to be getting some chickens. And eventually we want to do some sort of like experience out here. Like we want to do like RV pads in the front where people can come out and have the farm experience and then maybe eventually build some cabins and stuff.
Awesome. That's really cool. Yeah, I bet I can imagine that to-do list grows with each animal addition to the farm.
Oh, I mean, it's not only that, like the barn was built in like the 70s. So like I'm totally tearing out the barn and redoing it. And, with the hurricanes, we had a bunch of trees fall. So I'm cleaning that stuff up and doing burn piles. And, I'm still running my valet parking company. I just started an electrical company with a friend of mine. So
wait, you've had that valet car company the entire time?
Yeah, since 2001.
Holy cow.
Yeah,
we left that off earlier. I didn't know that was still even.
Yeah. So I mean, thank goodness. At first, like I was saying, when we first started, I was working like 60, 70 hours a week, and I thought that was going to be like something that tied me down. But later on, it was something that actually gave me a lot of freedom as an actor because I didn't have to worry about money all the time. I could travel when I needed to travel. Like even now, like when I need to travel, I can, I can get away when I need to. And things are usually pretty well taken care of while I'm gone.
Nice. Well, our next question was going to be about advice, but it sounds like maybe the advice is to diversify and invest in a lot of different businesses. No, I'm kidding, but that
Yeah.
is the next question. Do you have any advice for anybody starting out in the industry, or kind of words of wisdom for anybody trying to break in?
It's so hard to give someone else advice because I don't feel like I've taken the right path a lot of times. Like, I look back on things now, like when I was doing Pirates, and I think that was 2006. The first AD Dave, like we were all hanging out one night, and he's like, "Man, why are you not in LA? Why are you not in LA right now?" I go, "Well, I have my business and I have this and that." And I mean, I literally would have had a free place to stay, and if I would have sold my house at the time, I would have had enough money to live comfortably for at least a year and really concentrate on auditions and stuff like that. So I don't know. You talk about diversifying, and I think it's given me freedom, but it also, like, not going out to California also set me back in a lot of ways because most lead roles are cast out in California, even now. Like a lot of shows that will come to Florida or come to the Southeast, to Atlanta and stuff like that, they cast their lead roles out of LA and New York. And then, the secondary roles, the co-stars, the guest stars are cast over here. So, I think about that a lot. Like I'm very thankful for the way my life has turned out, and I wouldn't change it a bit. But looking back, I go like, maybe I should have thrown it all in the ring and just gone for it 100%. So I can't really give anyone else advice because I don't know what it would have happened if I would have just sold everything and gone out to LA. I don't.
You'd have been too expensive for us, is what would have happened.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. You're doing well. Again, if you guys have not seen the Apple TV Plus show Bad Monkey with Vince Vaughn, I popped when I saw you pop up on that show.
Yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I wish I would have met Vince Vaughn. He's one of my favorite actors, literally, like probably top three. But I did get to meet Bill Lawrence, who's the creator of Scrubs and Ted Lasso. And the thing that sucked, though, is he was helping direct that day. And it was so chaotic and so busy that I literally didn't realize it was even him until I got in my car after I'd left set. And I'm like, oh, man. In between like setups and stuff like that, like I totally could have picked his brain and just let him know what a big fan I was,
Yeah, that's a shame. But, it was maybe a genuine encounter then.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Right.
it's nice for people like that just to be treated like anyone else.
Yeah, he probably was
Sure.
happy to have just like a normal conversation.
Right.
All right, Jeremy, thank you for the candid answers here about your background, your career, about Scare Package, and about Rad Chad's Rad Recommendations, which again you can find on Paper Street's official YouTube channel. We are on the heels of a Christmas release we just dropped, the end of the season, the little mini season we did here. It's been a lot of fun. And
Huge surprises.
There really were.
Gotta check them out.
Indeed. Paper Street's YouTube channel now. What we will do going forward here is we will pivot from the interview part of this and move into what we call the Rapid Fire 15, which we always joke is not really rapid nor fire, but it is 15 questions we kind of tailored to you based on some of the ones we ask every guest. Some we tailor to you just based on some stuff we know about you. So we will jump in. First thing that comes to mind, not a cool test, no points. Just tell us some of the stuff you like that we're going to ask you about.
Oh, boy.
All right.
I'm really bad at this.
You'll do fine. I promise. First
I'm
one.
scared. I'm
What
scared.
movie do you think you have seen the most in your life?
Oh, boy. Most?
Yeah.
Man, I definitely watched Super Troopers like a bunch of times. Office Space, but I would have to say probably Home Alone, just because we kind of watch it every Christmas.
Oh, that's a good Christmas watch.
So Home Alone, final answer. Or Elf. We also watch Elf every Christmas.
Home Alone's got
It's a great
a
one.
20-year start on that one, though, so you probably see that one a little more, I imagine.
That's true. That's true.
Question 2, is there a movie, a show, or a song, any of them, if you can think of one, that always makes you emotional, always brings you to tears?
Movie, a show.
Or in a piece of pop culture, is there something that always makes you cry?
I wouldn't say always, but there's definitely some songs out there that will catch me off guard. Like, I listen to a lot of country music when I'm just, walking the track, warming up before my workouts. And there's definitely some, Live Like You Were Dying or You're Gonna Miss This. That's another one. You guys probably don't know any of those.
I know the first one, Tim McGraw. I know things.
Yeah, yeah.
I too come from Florida, hillbilly stock.
Yes, yes.
Thought you were going to bust out some Merle Haggard or something. You're saying.
Okay, that's old school country.
No, I mean I would say songs probably catch me more off guard as far as making you cry and stuff like that. I lost my best friend when I was in 2017, so sometimes songs will come on that remind me of him and will put me in kind of a sad place.
Well, let's transition to something else. Question 3. What's the first film that really scared you or gave you nightmares?
Aliens. My dad took me to see it. I believe I would have been in 3rd grade because we were living in Crystal Lake in Illinois. And it was in theaters. I think he was going to see it or something. And I'm like, Dad, take me with you. He's like, no, you're going to have nightmares. And I go, I promise I won't have nightmares. And we went and saw it. And I remember this so distinctly. Like my room faced the front of our property, and we had like a water retention ditch in the front. And the first night I came home from watching that movie, when I went to sleep, I had dreams of like aliens dropping into that ditch and running towards the house. And I'll never forget it. And I was so terrified, and I couldn't go to my parents' room and tell them I was scared because I had promised that I wouldn't be. So I just like sat there under my covers all night waiting for the aliens to like come through my window.
Do you recall if you fessed up and told them a day or two later, or did you just keep it to yourself? You never did. Oh, good for you.
It was sort of like, so in the summer one time when I was 15, I took my brother's scooter out, and in the back of the neighborhood, we had like sand on the road. And I thought I'd be cool and do like a spin out. And instead I was doing like 35 miles an hour, and the bike just came out from under me, and I slid like 30 feet on my elbow and my knee. Like the scooter never touched the ground. Like I was just bleeding profusely from my knee and my elbow. And I literally went home, put gauze on it, like wrapped it up. And I was wearing like a long sleeve shirt and long pants for like a week. And then when they finally saw the scabs, I told them I wiped out on my bike. And I don't think I told them the truth about that until I was like, at least in my late 20s.
Well, your secrets, so many secrets unleashed.
Oh, there was another, the best secret was we were skateboarding when we were in middle school, and my brother used to like setting the ramp on fire because he thought it was cool before we jumped. And he used to do it with a Q-tip. So he would dip the Q-tip in the gas can and then pour gas on the ramp and then light it. Well, he went to throw the Q-tip and it landed in the gas can. And we thought the gas can was going to blow up. So we kicked it, and it spread gas all over the front yard. Like, I mean, in the windows of the house, you could see like the flames. Like I could see my parents watching TV, and you could see the light from the TV, but you could also see the light from the flames. I don't know how they didn't notice. So it killed the whole front yard. And we never told my parents, and my mom blamed my dad because he was like changing something in the car and spilled some kind of fluid from the car. And she blamed him for killing the grass. And we let him take the fall for that one too.
Man. This is the less funny version of that bit in the Goonies where he's like, in 3rd grade, I cheated on my history exam. In 4th grade, I pushed my sister down the stairs, and I blamed it on the dog. I feel like we could go up another 10 minutes with these with Jeremy. He's like,
oh man, yeah. We used to be we used to get into some stuff as kids, man.
You had older brothers. Everybody with older brothers got into just insane shenanigans, I imagine.
Yeah. My dad was not very happy when we finally told him about that. God, that was probably only like 10 years ago when we came out with that one.
Oh, wow.
Long after my parents divorced. We may have caused it.
Yeah, probably. But that's not for us to talk to you about. That's for your therapist.
Yeah, it's fine.
Question 4. Do you have a favorite horror movie subgenre? Like, I know the Alien scared the crap out of you as a kid, but do you like psychological horrors or body horrors or some type of subgenre that you really click with?
I have to start with horror comedy. Just because of all the great shorts I've seen, like in the Scare Package universe. And Shaun of the Dead is probably one of my favorite movies ever. But I love all kinds of horror. I really love like psychological horrors that kind of take big twists and turns that you wouldn't expect. But, I also love like the Nightmare on Elm Streets and the, Friday the 13th and Halloween's, the straightforward like slasher horrors too. So, but I would say comedy horror is probably my current favorite.
All right. This next question may be hard given it might be like asking you to name your favorite child, but what is your favorite comedy film?
I would have to go back to either Super Troopers or Office Space. I think Office Space just so nailed office life right on the head and what everybody would love to do with that. In Super Troopers, I remember I saw it in the theater. I didn't know what it was, but I had two auditions in Orlando. One was at like 11 and the next one wasn't until like 4 o'clock. So I'm like, well, I'll go see a movie. And I mean, I laughed so hard during that movie. I was crying. Like, I mean, for a movie to be able to do that to you just is very special, you know?
I agree, and we also went and saw it rather cold, not knowing anything about like Broken Lizard or any of their stuff. I had not seen like Puddle Cruiser ahead of it, so walked out of there going, "Holy shit, that's like one of the new maybe great American comedies." But
right,
it's one we still quote to this day. Also, Brian Cox going against type so crazy is hilarious in that movie.
Yeah, 100%.
Lots of quotable lines in that. And
oh my god, I think every line in that movie is quotable.
Yeah,
you boys ever been to Mexico?
So in a similar vein, you are a longtime fan of comedy. Who would you put on your Mount Rushmore of comedic actors? And if that's too broad, if you want to do like sketch or stand up, whatever, but just in general, like who's a Mount Rushmore first picks for you?
Man, I would definitely say Will Ferrell, Vince Vaughn, Chris Farley is super funny. Probably those three, definitely. Who else would I add? Myself. I would be the fourth.
There you go. Love it.
Nice.
All right. Question 7. Who was your first celebrity crush?
Ooh, first celebrity crush?
Yeah.
Man, Debbie Gibson. Do you remember Debbie Gibson?
Oh, yes, you're showing your age without answer, but yes, of course.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Was there something specific?
And she was like, I remember she had an Out of the Blue album and she had like these ripped jeans on the front of the album. And I was like, my brother had the album because he was like really into her. So she was like, I think she was ahead of my time, but I thought she was super cute.
Good answer.
Yeah.
No judgment here. She definitely was a popular pop star in the day.
I mean, you said first that I had to go.
No, I know, I do. That one usually just reveals how old people are when they say like,
right.
How well? She's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Number 8, if you have one, who would you say is your favorite Muppet?
Muppet?
Yes, sir.
Fozzie the Bear.
The comedian. That tracks. Waka Waka.
Yeah. I was going to say Kermit, but he's kind of lame. You know, he lets Miss Piggy kind of push him around.
Makes sense.
Did you guys notice you've never seen Kermit the Frog and Luke Bryan in the same room together?
Is this a conspiracy theory that you're about to go down?
My wife is a huge Luke Bryan fan, and every time I hear him, all I can think of is Kermit the Frog. Like,
I don't know if I've heard his normal speaking voice. Does his singing voice also sound like
it's very much like this. I'm Luke Bryan, and I like Miss Piggy.
Yeah, that's a lot of modern country guys. Sound eerily like a cousin of mine.
We'll have to look up Luke Bryan.
That's just the Florida draw.
I think he was on The Voice for a while, right?
You're asking the wrong two people about that.
I love watching The Voice.
I've never seen an episode.
Speaking of The Voice, I actually have cried during some of the auditions for that because they're so amazing. And you see these people that are a little bit older and they haven't really made it, but their talent is just extraordinary.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm a sucker for that stuff. That can get me to cry.
My son's found a few of those YouTubes of like the Golden Buzzer on the whatever that show is, America's Got Talent.
Oh, yeah.
And those will get you too. Those human nature stories. Yeah. It's like you see a kind of a underdog tale. It's hard not to get emotional.
It is.
Speaking of sentimentality, question 9. Do you have any unique Christmas or winter seasonal traditions that you and your family do every year? Sounds like Home Alone and Elf are part of that.
We always did Christmas Eve at my mom's house. I'm trying to, my mom always made Christmas very special. So my dad grew up with, I think his family didn't really celebrate holidays very much. So he actually kind of learned from her too. But she always made Christmas very special. Like I can still remember, not too long after Thanksgiving, she'd have the Christmas music on and we would all decorate the tree. And every year still, we would get an ornament for that year. And I think a few years ago was the first year she like handed over my box of all my ornaments that I get every year. I was able to decorate them on my family tree now, which was super cool. because there was a lot of like, there was a lot of like Star Wars, like, original Star Wars stuff, or like stuff I made in like third grade. So I think maybe like the personalized ornaments every year would definitely be one of my favorites.
Yeah, we were a Hallmark family too, where my aunt, I actually asked her to stop when I turned 40. I was like, you don't have to do this anymore. Plus, I have kids now. You can start buying them an ornament. But we did that too, where she didn't keep them the whole time, but she would give them to me each year. But yeah, that we now decorate a tree full of kitschy, silly Spider-Mans and Star Warses and stuff like that.
Right. And it's just so cool to look back, like to remember, like I remember that stuff hanging on the tree when I was in elementary school. And to see it again, it's sort of, brings back a lot of good memories.
Question 10, pivot into some music. Do you have a favorite concert you've ever attended or a memorable concert experience that stands out to you?
I do, actually.
Is it Luke Bryan?
It is not Luke Bryan. So when Third Eye Blind first came out, I was running Panther Productions up in Virginia, and we were responsible for booking all the bands. And we didn't have budget. We didn't have a budget. And usually they would spend like $1,000 or $1,500, like bringing in, these people that would tour colleges, right? And I ran across Third Eye Blind. I heard one of their songs on the radio, and when we looked them up, and they were only $10,000 to book, which was a lot for our budget. But my boss was like, well, if you believe in this, and maybe we could do one big concert instead of all these little artists. And I ended up, so we booked them for the next year. And the funniest thing was they played our little college the night before they went on Saturday Night Live, and like just took off and got huge. And and like literally we got them for $10,000. And I got to run security for that show. So like I got to meet not the whole band. The lead singer, I guess, was kind of I don't know. He was in his trailer the whole time.
Was
but
indisposed.
Stefan Jenkins, he had a reputation for being
yeah. He had a little bit of a reputation for not being a super cool dude, but
but objectively, debut album, self-titled album, one of the better 90s albums. I will stand by that.
Oh my God. I mean,
Cameron Burns and I believe it is an actual masterpiece of an album.
Every single song on that album is amazing. I mean, Yeah, so that was probably one of my favorite concerts, just because I got to meet the whole band. I got to run security and kind of like, so I was like right in front of the stage the whole time, just kind of enjoying that. So that was always something special.
What a semi-charmed life you lead.
You had to do it.
I mean, but the fact that
Becky felt that
they actually showed up, the fact that they actually showed up instead of just canceling and being like, hey, you can have your 10 grand back.
Yeah, like, we're going to SNL tomorrow, dude. Fuck you.
Right. Like, yeah, guys, we're a little busy. So that was cool. And that, I went to a few other concerts afterwards, in like big concert arenas, and I always had a really good time.
I think when we've asked this question before, it's the first time anybody's ever responded with like being the person that actually set up the concert. So that's kind of cool.
And Jeremy's like,
I was really proud of that. And we actually made so much money off of that concert because obviously by the time they played, they were huge. So we were able to charge like a good amount for the tickets, that they were able to take that money and kind of put it to the budget every year to bring in like big bands every year. Like I think they made 30 or 40 grand off the concert. So like that set them up the next year to be able to bring more big bands in, which was really cool.
All right, another music one for you. Question 11. What is your go-to karaoke song? And if you don't do karaoke, what do you think you might sing if you had the courage?
My go-to karaoke is Ring of Fire.
Nice.
I feel like you're not the first person to say that answer either. That's not what I was expected from you. I thought a country ditty, like an upbeat 90s
fell into a burning ring of fire.
Oh, no, we didn't ask, but thank you.
Yeah. So I downloaded all the Johnny Cash albums, and we used to have poker nights at at my house when I lived in Clearwater. And, I'd drink whiskey, we'd play poker and listen to Johnny Cash. That was kind of our thing.
Nice. Yeah. I think you could know that one. I believe you.
Yeah, I do okay.
One more in a similar vein, music-wise. What would be Jeremy King's walkout music if you came out to introduce a movie or some kind of presentation? Maybe you're coming out for a fight, or you're like at a baseball game. What's your entrance music?
Either King of Pain, sung live by like Sevenfold, which is originally a God, who sung it originally?
Sting and the Police.
Sting.
Yeah, yes. I was going to say, is that the same song I'm thinking?
So anyway, my nickname in high school was King of Pain when I played football, because
You said it was Jizzo.
Well, so my buddy called me DJ Jizzo, right? Or not DJ Jizzo, but just Jizzo. But my nickname in high school was King of Pain because
Last name.
my freshman year spring football, I started just literally knocking people out. Like I knocked like 3 people out within like 2 weeks. And my coach was like, "Oh shit, King of Pain." And then it just kind of stuck after that. So I still love hearing that song because it reminds me of my glory days.
Now it's kind of like the perfect nostalgic football sort of
Yes.
story.
Yes.
Yes. See,
Yeah.
kids, this was back when Dad was the king of pain.
Right. Right. My son
Killing
didn't
your
believe
children
me.
with Al Bundy tales. I love it.
Yeah, it is sort of Al Bundy-ish at this point. One time I knocked out 2 people in one practice to where they couldn't see a thing. Well, the crazy thing, so is at the time, on a side note that you guys probably don't even need, when all that was happening, I don't know what I did to my neck, but when I would hit people, everything would go black, and then I could only see the color green for about 10 minutes. And I was in so much pain that at night, the only thing I could do is lay a pillow under my neck and sleep straight. I couldn't move. I don't know why I didn't tell anybody. Well, I know why I didn't tell anybody because I knew they would stop me from playing. And I finally told one of the coaches before my sophomore year, and they like made me go to all these specialists, and they couldn't find anything wrong, but they wouldn't sign off on me playing. So I ended up going to like a doctor that had no idea about any of the other stuff and just like got a physical and had him sign off on it.
The story got less cool and funny, just so you know, as you continued. And now it's just like, well, no, of course you knocked yourself out by knocking these people out. You're running into them full blast and you're blacking out yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
All right.
but it went away. Like it went away.
In true Jeremy fashion, he kept the secret from people.
You recovered from your brain damage.
Yeah.
Got it.
Right. Yeah. Well, it had to be a pinched nerve or something because like it went away. It never happened after that. So, but I mean, it was bad. It was to the point like I couldn't sleep at night. I would just lay a pillow under my neck and just lay there in pain.
Oof.
So I guess that nickname had 2 meanings.
Yes, very self-reflective.
Yes. Yes.
All right, question 13. Switching away from music now. Do you have a favorite or memorable film going experience, like a special screening that you went to? Could be a movie that you were in or just a movie you were watching just as a regular audience member, like a Star Wars type of experience or something.
I do remember seeing, I think the second Star Wars in theaters with my parents, which was like super cool. I also remember an experience seeing, oh God, what's the name of the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger? It was sort of a He-Man type movie, but it was not He-Man at all.
Conan the Barbarian?
Conan the Barbarian. So my parents thought that Conan the Barbarian was basically like He-Man, right? So they took us to see it. And all of a sudden there's just like boobs everywhere. He like cuts the head off a giraffe. Like all this crazy stuff is going on. And I think they pulled us out of the movie after like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's like He-Man, but written by Oliver Stone. So
yes. And then one of the most transformative experiences that totally screwed me up. I remember I was on a date with this girl in high school, and we went and saw Natural Born Killers.
Great date movie, Jeremy. Good call.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, but it was one of those movies that just makes you like question reality and question everything. It was kind of like Fight Club. When I saw Fight Club, it's like it took me like days to recover from that one. Like, I mean, it did, like, so yeah, I would say all those.
Yeah. The penultimate question for you here. If you could program a double feature of any 2 films in the world that maybe either pair together well or kind of show your 2 sides, maybe like a comedy and a fucked up movie together, what's like a double feature if you could program the Jeremy King double feature so people would get to know the 2 wolves inside of you maybe?
Oh, God. I think I would have to go. I would go Super Troopers and Fight Club.
Swap them though, right? You want to chase it with the silly one? No, you don't leave people.
Would you? Would you, or would you want to laugh and be like get all messed up?
I don't know, because the ending of Fight Club kind of leaves you with a certain feeling, and I can't imagine following that up with
yeah, that's true.
Right? Yeah. So I think
you're right.
You're right. I think I would do Super Troopers first because,
you're right.
Like I said, when I watch Fight Club, it does like it's one of those movies that does make you question reality and question your reality and like question like, oh my God, like I'm a consumer. Like all these goals I have were probably given to me from advertising, like,
Oh yeah, more than we realize.
oh yeah, 100. Well, I mean, God, they've been doing. I mean, think about the fact that advertisers have been studying this stuff for 100 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, and the crazy thing is, so I did marketing for a rideshare company, and they would come in to sell us stuff, and they'd be like, "Okay, did you know you can geofence certain locations, and if people go there, we can advertise them directly because they went to a certain place. Like you could advertise to football fans if they, during a Bucks game, they could target them if during a Bucks game they went into the Buck Stadium. You can geofence like McDonald's to have it throw them Burger King ads. Like,
Yeah.
I think the technology is
The
so
target
much.
marketing's only gotten scarier since
Well,
then.
right, and the fact that they say that your phone doesn't listen to you, but you mention something, and it's like you get 10 ads for it. It's like, I don't believe you.
You'll have a McD's ad on your phone by the end of the night.
Right. McDonald's tastes so good. I love double cheeseburgers. I wish I had a double cheeseburger right now.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Yeah. Ding.
Okay, meow is the final question that we're going to ask as part of the Rapid Fire 15. What would be your dream project? Like if there's an original idea, maybe you have a fictional character that you would really like to play in like a certain genre that you want to do that you haven't had the chance, or maybe there's a historical figure you want to
I
bring to
have
life.
a movie that's bouncing around in my head that I need to get down on paper that I would love to do. And I don't know if I can explain too much about it, but it's sort of it's a horror comedy, but it's sort of actually kind of serious too in a lot of parts. And it's just sort of about like a guy going through a midlife crisis and experiencing a real crisis. And sort of the journey he takes to kind of forgive himself for the mistakes he made in his past. So I think that would be a really cool project if I could ever put it together.
Nice. I love when people answer this question with something that's like of their own creation, their own original idea. Because I feel like that's ultimately what the dream is, right? Is to see our own ideas come to life. So,
well, there was a song, it was funny because I don't know if the guy was on The Voice or one of those other shows, but he did a cover of, and I'm never going to think of the name of the song right now.
An older country song, modern country song. What was it?
No, this isn't a country song. It was a song by Bruce Springsteen, I think. But he sang it really slow, and it gave this song like I never understood the meaning of the song before.
is it Born in the USA? Because I know that one is like
one that would
actually
be that would work way slowed. I mean, Dancing in the Dark could be slowed down and make it a little.
Dancing in the Dark. I think it is Dancing in the Dark.
Yeah, I think that's what you just sort of hummed.
Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, but it gave the song just a totally different meaning. Like when he sang it so slow and you could actually understand all the lyrics, it sort of reminded me of just like a life of just about somebody that needs to break out, that needs to, I think we all get stuck in these places in our lives where we're not really living. We're just kind of doing our to-do list every day or just kind of like making it through. And I think I cried when I heard that version of it, but it also made me think of this whole like story idea, and that would be like a main part of it. This guy realizing that he was kind of not awake in his own life and not really chasing his own things and kind of like upset at himself for the past. And this big crisis happens and he actually becomes more alive and starts thriving in the chaos, whereas everybody else is sort of going the other direction.
Yeah, I could see a slowed down version of that being affecting because it is, the song's about like he's stuck and it's mundane and he's got to break out.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
I was going to say, I'm going to go look for it after this. I told this to Becky eons ago when we first launched this podcast, but Dance in the Dark is actually my go-to karaoke song.
Is it?
It is, yeah.
Well, how interesting.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to share this song with you.
Threads are connected.
Unlike this Rapid Fire 15, very interesting. No, we kid. We've exhausted Becky with our hooliganism and our shenanigans, our tomfoolery, our skullduggery.
Oh, so Becky's had a great time.
Sure. Sure. No, we appreciate again the answers on this segment as well. We appreciate
Swingers.
you.
Swingers is also one of my favorite movies that like really changed my perception of a lot of things.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to you about how that was a touchstone movie for Aaron and I as well. And when I got out to LA in '02, I kind of sort of lived that life for a year.
Yeah.
It was a wild time. Still one of the better, more honest movies about the dating game, whether it holds up to some people or not. I still think it's
amazing.
Got some good stuff. And yeah, it goes back to your Vince Vaughn love. How could you not have loved him from that onward?
I did. That's when I began to love him.
He's done a few comedies that I feel like are forgettable, but then he showed up as Bob Einstein's brother when he passed away, unfortunately, on the last couple seasons of Curb. And he does remind you that he's still got the improv chops on that show.
Oh, man. I mean, look at like something like Old School.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Almost every memorable line from him was not scripted. It was improv.
Right. And then, I mean, even in Bad Monkey, he's more reserved. And I think he's trying to stay more in that character instead of just being Vince Vaughn. But you can still see that he loves doing the improv and likes to keep it fresh, you know?
Sure. So wrapping up here with you, again, Rad Chad's Rad Recommendations, find that on the Paper Street YouTube channel. We'll link it in the show notes, paperstreetpodcast.com on this episode page. For you, Mr. Rad Chad Buckley, Mr. Jeremy King, do you have somewhere you want to direct people to? Is there a social media you're active on that you'd like to have us link to folks to find you?
Yeah, I just started my OnlyFans, but it's just feet, so I don't know if you'll be able to recognize me.
Onlyfeet.com.
They could be very recognizable feet. We don't know yet.
Actually, they probably would be. I just had I broke my foot from falling out of an oak tree while I was trimming it, so I have a big scar on my one foot. So you'd definitely be able to recognize it.
You were like a mix between Bugs Bunny and just like a clumsy man. I don't know. Your stories.
I'm a Renaissance man,
you're like,
Sean.
Oh, yeah, I fell out of a tree the other day.
I do manly stuff, okay? When you do manly stuff, you're going to get injured sometimes.
It's true.
It is true.
So no social media?
I mean, you know, Instagram and Facebook.
We'll link a few of them there for you.
Stuff.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, for making us laugh, both as Rad Chad and as yourself today. It was really great to get to know you a little bit better and excited to watch the Christmas episode.
Thank you, Becky. It's been nice hanging with you also.
And me.
I have to mention Sean, too.
No, you do not. No, Jeremy,
Sean,
we've busted chops a little more than normal.
Sean, you're okay. Sean, you're fine.
We've seen each other more.
But I really
ever had before.
Enjoyed talking to Becky.
And that's fair. I enjoy talking to Becky too. We have enjoyed talking to you again. In all sincerity, we love you. The Paper Street team loves you, and that's why we keep you around, because we know you are good stock, despite your hillbilly leanings and your Florida farming and goating and other things. No, we are fans, of course.
Hey, if it wasn't for my farming, you wouldn't have all those sweet goats in your videos. I know.
Rad Chad's Rad Recommendations, I believe the 4th installment features one of said livestock, White Phillip.
Maybe more than one.
Indeed. So yes, thank you for being on the show. And again, to folks for the last time, check out Rad Chad's Rad Recommendations on the Paper Street Pictures YouTube channel. It's a hoot.
And don't forget to check out my OnlyFeet.